the team now for just a little bit. Hlengiwe Mabaso, Joey Likhodi and Pumuzo Ramagadza are on our production. On technical production is Nanda Koza. Social media is Talent Butelezi. On news is Jalani Tulo Mwepe. On economics news, Nosipo Zuma. And on sports is Fikile Lingwati. That's our team on Africa Rise and Shine. Now, let's take a look at some of the stories making headlines in the East Africa. And we're joined on the line by Kenyan journalist and founder of Association of Grassroots Journalists Kenya, Dennis Beru. Dennis, how are you on this Tuesday?
I'm fine. Hope you are doing well in South Africa. How is everything in South Africa?
Everything is good so far. Just a little bit cold, but we're surviving.
Yeah, actually, same here in Kenya. A bit of cold, but at the end of the day, we have to really do what we are supposed to do.
Awesome. Well, thanks for making time for us. We always love having these catch-up sessions. Very important to know. Let's start today with the detention and torture of Kenyan prominent civil society activist Boniface Mwangi in Tanzania. We have touched on this earlier in the show. He was held for 4 days before being dumped at the border. What can you tell us?
Thank you so much. Of course, the issue of Boniface Mwangi being tortured in Tanzania has been an issue that we've been talking about it for the last 2 weeks and so. And according to the Tanzanian authorities, that people who have they said that people invaded the country to make noise. And they had to arrest and deport them. But the manner in which Boniface Mwangi was deported back to Kenya was actually inhumane. I remember he was. It is alleged that he was dropped at the border between Kenya and Tanzania. That is Horohoro border, and it is also alleged that he was transported by road from Dar es Salaam. That is so many miles from Dar es Salaam to the Kenyan border. That is the coastal region of Kenya. And during the 3-day ordeal, as per the conversation from Boniface Mwangi, the activist, he said that he was really tortured, he was beaten. He was being asked, a lot of questions. At the same time, he was being beaten. It is also alleged that Boniface Mwangi, for the 3 days he was in detention of his captives, he didn't even take anything, even water. So these has really brought tension, diplomatic tension between Kenya and Tanzania. But remember, the Kenyan authorities, that is through the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Musalia Mudavadi, refuted the claims and saying that, the countries have their own policies and laws. So it is really sad for Kenyan people to go to Tanzania and start activism there, saying that Kenya has been so lenient on these leaders, on these activists. They've been given space to bring out the issues, but when it is the issue of Tanzania, so they have to follow the rules in those particular countries, and that is what has really been happening in Kenya. Boniface Mwangi was brought here, and he got medical attention at the coastal region, and later he was airlifted to Nairobi for further medical attention.
Talking about having to respect the rules in one's country and how those could differ from one's home country, the president of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan, saying that she wouldn't tolerate outsiders coming into the country and meddling. using that word in inverted commas, into the country's affairs. In the case of Mwagi, and there's also Ugandan activist Agathe Atuhare, was it meddling in your view, or were they just simply trying to show solidarity for opposition leader Tundu Lissu?
Yes. On the issue of the Ugandan activist and lawyer Agatha Atuhaire, it is the same issue, but for our issue is extraordinary because it is also alleged that the lawyer was tortured to a point of being raped, and this is according to the conversation that she had with the members of the media. Same story, same scenario. She was also dropped at the border between between Tanzania and Uganda, and she was in a very bad state of mind. She was tortured and to a point of being raped, as per the sentiment with the members of the public. Still, Ugandan authority have not responded to these allegation, or rather the detention of Agatha Atuhaire, who is a top lawyer from Uganda. Now, the point is, if we remember, East Africa signed the East African Peace Accord. We are a community. We are one community. We are free to move from one country to another. But why is this happening when activists from these countries are going to Uganda in solidarity, or to represent the opposition leader Tundu Lissu, who is in jail, facing charges of treason. Another point is Tanzania trying to silence the activist from that particular country. Remember, in recent past, we've seen so many activists from Tanzania being silenced. I remember we are at a very crucial point where Tanzania is preparing for the elections in October. So we are still waiting to see whether the captors of the two activists will be arrested and arraigned in court. Because remember, issues around rape is a very serious crime in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Uganda, and all over the world.
Yes, as it should be. And over and above Tanzania, in his home country, Mwangi is known to be a campaigner against corruption. President William Ruto filed a defamation lawsuit against him. He's also stood in the 2017 general elections in Kenya. So he's definitely ruffled some feathers in terms of the Kenyans' political circle. Can we see a connection in terms of that also to what we've seen him endure in this torture?
Of course, that is true. Boniface Mwangi has been the most critic of the recent regimes. Even during the late President Mwai Kibaki, he was vocal about the issues around corruption. During President Uhuru Kenyatta, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, Boniface Mwangi was also a critic of the government, criticized the government on issues to do with corruption and also the issues around violation of human rights per se, the activist. Of course, this is in connection with the elections. I remember is also a big critic of the recent regime, that is William Ruto's regime, and people feel, of course, there is a connection. Remember, President Mama Samia Suluhu and President William Ruto, they are friends. They have been talking, and people on the corridors, they are saying, of course, why is it that Boniface Mwangi and the Ugandan activist Agatha Atwaire were denied entry, and also former Chief Justice Willie Mutunga was denied, but former or the recently or the retired Chief Justice that is David Maraga was allowed to go and represent and see Tundu Lissu. Remember, David Maraga is not a critic of government, but why was he allowed to go and enter Tanzania and to a point he even attended the court sessions? So people say, oh, of course, yes, now we know you do not want Boniface Mwangi because he is a critic of your government, he's criticizing issues around corruption. And David Maraga, a former Chief Justice, he was allowed to enter into Tanzania. So the whole point is corruption, and also the position where he sits, that he has been a critic of government for so many years, especially this government. Remember, during the Gen Z, he was at the forefront of the Gen Z demos.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting because, as we said earlier, Martha Karua was also arrested on 18 May for wanting to show support for Tundu Lissu. Agatha Atwaire, who's saying she was raped in Tanzania, also found in the border of her country with Tanzania. In terms of what this will mean for Kenya's next elections, there's a lot of activism around corruption and how politics are being run in the East Africa. But now the U.S. is demanding to get answers from Tanzania about the detention, the torture, the rape of these activists. If no one else is receiving answers from Tanzania, is the U.S. the better guy to put pressure for these answers?
Thank you so much, Asanda. Of course, if we see pressure piling from the U.S., we might see some serious action taking place or being taken by the Tanzanian authorities. I remember the U.S. Bureau of African Affairs, which is now under the U.S. State of Department, through their X post last Friday, saying that they're really deeply concerned by reports of mistreatment of the two East African activists, that is Agatha and also Boniface Mwangi. Yes, and this coming from a U.S., of course, we know U.S. government has been leading in terms of trying to ensure that people's rights are not being violated, and of course, we might see a response from the Tanzanian authority on the same, because Kenyan government, as I said, earlier, they are speaking the same language with the Tanzanian government. So we do not even expect to see or to hear any statement from their counterparts in Tanzania. But of course, we might see the U.S. piling more pressure on the same to see whether the perpetrators, especially on the issues around rape allegation, are brought to books. Remember, these are very serious crime. And we also had, the sentiments of the Amnesty International, that is the regional director for East and Southern Africa, Mr. Tigere Chaguta, who also raised their concerns of the torture on the inhumane the two activists went through. So, Asanda, we are hoping that this pressure will be piled on the Tanzanian authority, especially President Samia Suluhu. And remember, people around East Africa, they really had a lot of hopes in Mama Samia Suluhu's presidency. I remember during the late John Pombe Magufuli's regime, we had the same issues around activists being arrested and tortured. So they expected, because she is a woman, of course, we might see change, but this is not coming. So let's wait and see whether the Bureau of African Affairs will still pile pressure on, more pressure on Tanzanian authorities to ensure that the perpetrators
those questions are answered.
arrested.
Well, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much, Dennis, and you have a great Tuesday.
Thank you so much, Asanda.
Dennis Beru is Kenyan journalist and founder of the Association of Grassroots Journalists, Kenya. That's our East Africa Wrap at 6:31 Central African Time. Let's say good morning to Jwalani Tulongwepe with news headlines.